Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Coaches Coffee Club. Really pleased to be able to be back recording again, and it's great to welcome Elliott Ward to the latest edition of the Coffee Club. Elliott, welcome.
Hi, guys.
Great to have you on, mate. We have interviewed a number of different people with different backgrounds in coaching, but we were really keen to get you on to discuss a number of different things. So everyone's fully aware, we've got want to talk to Elliott about his background, obviously, in terms of his playing career, but why he's taken the step into coaching. But for me, the route and the direction of his coaching pathway, and then we'll back that up with the session that he's put together for us that I know he's delivered recently. And then to a little bit further in, we'll go down some of the questions that we've already had sent in. So to start, mate, a number of people all know who you are, what you've done, but it'd be great if you could just give us a bit of background on of course, your playing career, and then sort of why you've taken yourself into coaching.
Well, thanks for having me to start with. It's look, football was something that I always wanted to do, so it's very easy to say as a kid, and now I've done it. All that stuff that is always something I wanted to do. As youngest of four boys, three of us become professionals. So my journey is quite football. Like, it was just always football from a young age. So youngest of four, so I ended up joining Watford when I was 12. Played Sunday or grassroots football till then. Really enjoyed it. Watford opportunities weren't there for me. I'm really tall, right? So I was a lot bigger than a lot of people at my age when I was 10, 11, 12. So progression was not there for me. Ended up joining West Ham at 14 and played at every age group up until the first team. So then I had quite a few clubs after that. So back in the day where you could go on loan month to month, I had that and had probably 10, 12 clubs. It might be a bit less, if I'm honest. But my view was if someone didn't want me, someone else might. So I ended up playing a lot of games for different clubs, and successful with some, unsuccessful with others. But ended up having a lot of good coaches throughout my career. And I think that's probably had a big impact on maybe how I am now in coaching and stuff like that. And I still speak to quite a few of them. So a lot of them are still my mentors as well. Nick ideas, always used bits that was good, and always learned that there's some bits as a player you just knew that you wouldn't use when you're a coach. So take the good and bad from all of them, and try and put it in my own way as well. So playing career finished probably, so it's 3 years since lockdown, right? So I joined Chelmsford 3 years ago, and then lockdown happened. But then that was the start of my coaching journey. So Cambridge was my last league club, as Ross knows. He helped that happen. And then Chelmsford happened, and naturally it fell into place. Yeah, like I said, that was when my coaching career started. So
yeah, we're it's great for us to have someone like yourself on there, because I think so many people, obviously with the playing background that you've had, can revert back to that, which most and a lot of people do so often. But one of the biggest attractions to us and for myself was that I obviously understand where you've started your coaching journey, as you referred to. And I think it's quite refreshing, because I think a lot of people take their playing boots off and put their copers on to start coaching and go down the route of being around the first team, being involved. Some go straight into management, and you obviously haven't taken that route, El. So it'd be great for people listening in as to sort of how it started when you said when you stopped playing for Chelmsford, but sort of what the roots looked like for you when you first started getting your teeth into it, and obviously where and what you're doing now.
Yeah. Well, I done like my level 2 when I was in the youth team, right? So that was a long time ago. Then it ran out. because it was that long ago, and I was at Blackburn, so I had to redo it. So I ended up driving to St George's just to do it. So that I done that bit. Then a couple of years later on, I was going to be on my B license, and I was at Notts County at this point. My contract, I had a bit of a contract situation with that, right? So I ended up not playing for the first team and being with the 23. So I ended up helping coach the 21s plus play for them, and then help the 18s. And then that gave me 6 months of work, understanding of what coaching looks like, what the planning looks like. And then I done my B license that summer, and it was actually back at West Ham's training ground. So, and I hadn't been back. So that was quite a big thing for me, where I hadn't been back to a training ground since I left. And then I kind of thought, I'll do my B license and see if I like it. And that was it. So if I didn't like it, I was going to have to think of something else. Lucky I liked it. I got right into it. Enjoyed the planning, enjoyed delivering, enjoyed leading. That kind of fell into place. So that was my B license done. And then after I left Notts County, I ended up going to Cambridge. And I always thought that whatever club I finish at, I would hopefully naturally fall into it. So like you said, that some players fall into first team straight away. I thought that could be it, if I'm honest. And I was kind of hoping it might be that I just blend into it and then become a first team coach, third coach, whatever it might be, or naturally. I always wanted it to fall naturally instead of desperately look for jobs, if I'm really honest. And then but it didn't work like that. I ended up leaving Cambridge, joined Chelmsford, and then lockdown happened. But they wanted to they had the EGA side of it, and then they wanted to do an academy, which is basically the under 18s, but a bit more elite. And then they still are building underneath. So we spent a lot of time in lockdown working that out. We had to then, so this was my first job. So I was then still playing, but I was then under 18s coach. So worked out all the training in bubbles. We had to do all the trials. We had like over 100 kids trying to turn up, trying to work out social distance and all that. So we had loads to work with and loads to do in difficult times as well. So that's how I fell into my first role. And then it was a COVID hit season, so we never actually completed it, but I was on the grass 3 times a week because that's how it worked. And then in between that, I would go and watch other teams. So I'd watch, I'm talking about Dimitri a minute ago, I'd go and watch Dimitri coach. I'd go and watch the 18s coach. I'd go and watch Spurs and watch them coach. So I was filling up my days, learning still. So I was just picking people's brains like that. And then ended up, when I retired, I was more than ready to, by the way, Ross, and I know you know that, but I was comfortable doing it when I did. I think I was 35, 36. So it was, I nearly had to retire at 18. So to do 18 years of it to get to that, and then I chose because I wanted to coach, was brilliant for me. So I ended up doing it how I wanted to. And I stopped, and then West Ham approached me about doing their under 14s part-time. So I ended up still doing Chelmsford 18s, but doing West Ham. So I retired, but then added more work. So I was then doing day and night plus weekends, which went down well with family. So it was something I needed to do so now I had a Cat 1 elite environment, plus I had Chelmsford Academy, and both different levels and both different ages. So I'd go from coaching in the morning, like mid-afternoon, of coaching 16, 17, 18-year-olds and trying to coach them and teach them, to then driving to coach 13, 14-year-olds. So the challenge was already there for me. And I wasn't overly keen with really going too young. and coaching in general, but just really big learning for me, where I'm learning how to deal with different ages, different qualities, different temperaments, different abilities, different backgrounds, and all within 24 hours. So like I said before, I'd do that, and then my days off, I'd then watch other coaches. So I just surrounded myself with loads of that, and got my A license, which Chelmsford really helped out with. And yeah, the Chelmsford thing went well in terms of we won the league and stuff like that first time. And then we ended up winning the next bit, which was like a mad Champions League thing, it was brilliant for the players. It was like knockout competition. So somehow we ended up being the best team in the country, which was, we would have said that. And fair play to the players, because they just delivered and found a way every game we played to get a result, which was brilliant for them. So we send the second years off to uni, and first thing they probably tell people in the first week is that their champions are champions, and like no one else in the country could say that. So that was really good. And they were my first boys, really. So we sent them off, and it was, quite emotional because it was my first job. We guided them through the first few years, not just because it went well, but they just, we were dealing with kids that are important stage of their life in terms of education as well. So no, that was really, really enjoyed that time, along with the West Ham, and just like loads. And that was what it was about, really, just trying to be around good people, learn loads, and take it into my work now. And yeah, so now I'm at Colchester doing the 18s because of that little bit of the journey. So making connections with good people and trying to deliver good work and develop young players.
Oh, there's a few things I pick out of that, if you don't mind, mate. And some of it is like, I think so often when someone's played that, and I know you don't like people reverting back to that, but it's natural that we do. So I think it's important to recognise it for a number of different reasons. But so often in football, people refer to like, it's who you know, not what you know, and all references like that. But I think what's quite refreshing, obviously knowing the like part of your story, I didn't know the champions are champions bit, but which is fantastic. But actually listening to some of that shows that, of course, you have your networks and your connections and people that you'd have been able to pick the phone up to when your career was coming to an end. But you've gone out and you've grafted in your way. And some people will go like, you've got the opportunity to take the West Ham under 14s, but fortunately for you, you come through that academy, it's your club, and you get that opportunity. But at the same time, you're still getting your hands dirty with all the different backgrounds that of the different types and different of coaching and kids that you're coming into contact with. So I think like with what was the biggest challenge of those two sections, I suppose, is the first bit I'd like to know a bit more about, in terms of getting in the car and leaving Chelmsford and driving to work with some of the best under 14s in the country. Like, how's that shift change? What it does it, but like I suppose that's something that some people would want to know.
Yeah, because I would coach along with Mickey and Simeon Jackson at Chelmsford, and we would coach to develop those boys for what they need for Chelmsford. And then we're trying to get them into, we didn't have it at the time, but it was ended up having the under 23s, like reserves typed it. And we're trying to produce players for that first team at Chelmsford. So we would coach how we wanted to, and it would be related to how we want to play and how to win games, all that. So we're trying to teach the boys, we're trying to make them development individually and stuff like that. So we had free reins to do what we wanted. We weren't dictated to from above. We ran it how we wanted to. And the only time that we really nailed down certain bits was if I was doing my A license and I needed a session, it would be finish the attack or build the attack or stuff like that. And we would really concentrate on the finer detail because we was on course. So yeah, we would develop the players. We do unit work because we had 3 coaches sometimes, and we would do that. But then when I go to West Ham, you work in blocks. Again, it'd be build the attack versus high press. So then you have to really narrow it down to the individual, what they need, how is it going to help them if they're like, it goes, by the way, it refers to like in the session I done that we'll talk about as well, but you're going against 2 different things, moments of the game. So you're trying to help defenders, midfielders in the build, but you're trying to help the attackers high press and what it looks like, and what if the picture changes, and you got to recognize that the young kids that don't see what you see or don't understand it, and everyone's different, they'll learn at different paces. You might have to show them on a tactics board, show them the video, and you have the facility to do that. So, which is big. If not, tactics board is brilliant for that. And also you have to program with the learning. You have to ask the questions, do they understand it? And then also they will turn up at different times. There's loads of different challenges as coaches. So you have to do arrival games to make sure that it's all timed well, and the ball rolling has got to be bang on. You might have quarter of the pitch, half a pitch, and everyone could probably relate to this as well. Rarely do you get a full pitch. So the challenge is that sometimes you turn up, this happens everywhere. Numbers change. My numbers changed today, and you find a way to adapt it. So the biggest thing is being adaptable, and as a coach, but I always ask the players that as well, if possible.
Yeah, so you're planning on playing out from the back, and you sent half late for training, or which I'm sure many people, whatever level you're working at and types of players you're coaching, the challenges become the same, don't they? It's very rare.
Always the same. Yeah.
And it's got to be adaptable. So with that, last one on this little bit, but with that challenge of going between 14-year-olds or 13 and 14-year-olds and then under 18s, what's your preference at the time? Like, so you're working with 18s and you've got a free rein, which some people think, oh, great, I can go in and I can deliver off my own back. But I'm sure that has its own limitations or difficulties. Or then you get in the car and you arrive at West Ham and it's set as to how you need to work. How did that feel as a new coach at that time? Like what one felt better? Did having it in black and white in front of your 6-week block feel right, or was the preference to, no, actually I'm going to do a bit of this today? I'm not, and I mean that sounds a little bit off the cuff. I don't mean it like that, but I think you know where the question's coming from.
Yeah, I do. It's just the answer. No, listen, it's 2 different challenges, and I'd have to think about my language as well. So I'd have to think about how I talk to kids, and some things you can say and you can be a bit firm with other kids, older kids, and then younger kids you have to guide them more. So I'm trying to swerve the answer, aren't I? So
no.
I've
probably phrased the question in a little bit way where it might sound like I'm trying to catch you out. I don't mean it like that. I just think as a new coach, which one feels right? Do you know what I mean? Or both of them might.
I knew what to coach. We knew what to coach for Chelmsford, right? So we knew what they needed to improve. We were working. So if we worked on a Tuesday, we're working towards the Wednesday, which was match day.
Yeah.
So it was easier to work on a Tuesday, ready for the Wednesday. Like, and by the way, you don't really know what you're coming up against, so you're working purely about yourself, which I love. So even now, I try not to overly focus on opponents, because it should be about your players. And by the way, the opponents and opposition is just as important, because they pose more questions, and they're not just going to turn up and let you do what you want. So No, we worked like that, so that was good. So we knew how we wanted to be effective in our game, so it was just about us. And
Yeah, brilliant.
Like that. When it goes to West Ham, it's yes, you're trying to get the best out of the individual. You're trying to give them the best chance to develop. So they're two totally different.
Yeah, and I suppose a perfect environment is the opportunity to have the freedom to go and deliver sessions that you think might work or might be relevant at a particular time, but with a little bit of guidance somewhere in between, or a little bit of structure. So I suppose from a grassroots perspective, refer to any level, but if we go down the grassroots line, about having a bit of a plan in your mind as you're working towards whatever it is, whatever period in the season that you don't become totally bogged down by, oh, we didn't defend particularly well this weekend. You still focus on the individual, or if you had it in your mind that you wanted to work a little bit more on an attacking perspective, you don't just change the dynamic of your session just because of the previous week and the performance.
No, I think it's with the grassroots one as well. I think you can work on the individuals within the team anyway. So the team structure might be the same. You work on attacking stuff, but even when you're doing attacking stuff, you might be working on your best defender. There's loads of stuff you can do. It doesn't always have to be towards the game. It's just different environments throw up different challenges. And you have to work the best way to get the best out of your players for whatever it is. Don't know if I complicated that answer or not.
No, not at all from my perspective.
Yeah.
Elliott, it's really interesting to hear about your playing career and your kind of transition between playing and then coaching. It's a two-part question. So firstly, if you'd have done your coaching badges or shown or done that within your playing career as opposed to at the end of it, do you think you would have been a better player? And secondly, in that transition period between doing your coaching badges, how hard was it almost going right back to basics? Because I imagine that a lot of the things that you do and that you've done and within your playing career just become subconscious. How hard is it to then go back and try to learn the why and the how to be able to teach that to younger players?
I think the first part of that question is probably, I think, yeah, because as I got older and understood the game more, I had some really good coaches that taught you better as well. So as the game moved forward, some of my coaches had as well. So it wasn't just we're setting up, we're playing 4-4-2 and whatever. We were getting proper, and then we were getting taught properly on the pitch, in the classroom. There's more to share, so everything evolved. Nowadays, the players, I say no excuse, but they get given every bit of information they could. If there's a question, we can work it out. We can show videos. We can do tactics board stuff. We can look at the best elite examples. That wasn't there before. So, and it started to come in, like analysis that started to come in when I was quite young. But I think my coaches made me better and made the understanding better for me especially as I got older. Would I have been a better player? I say probably, but I think that would have been annoying, because if I'd have done all my coaches, now I know everything. Like apparently I'd know everything, and then I'm a better. I'd be able to. I don't think that would be quite healthy either, because that happens. Players get have badges, and then it's like, oh no, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that, and then I'm not sure that would. Yeah, I'm not sure. I get it. Nah, I don't know. And then the second part, I think thing I struggled with at the start is that I would assume that everyone knew what I was on about. So I would see all the pictures, most of the pictures, and I'll be like, well, how do they not see that? Or why have they not done this and that? So I still do it at times. I assume they know what I'm on about. So then I have to break it down and deliver better, and the detail has to be better in terms of how I structure it. So depending on the age group, you might have to really strip it back and then layer it like that. At the start, I wasn't doing that. I just thought, well, they'll know what I'm doing because I set it up and I've done this, so they should know it. It was a little bit like that, not in an arrogant way. It's just, I just expected everyone to know what I was on about. So the challenge is getting better at that, and it's still the challenge. And again, because everyone's a different learner, like the players, they learn differently. So I'll have to speak to certain players in a different way, or show them more, or and then it's how well do you know your players? That's the next bit. But I think that was the biggest challenge for me, assuming that everyone knew what I meant.
And still the same when it comes to working with first team players. I know you've had the opportunity to do that a couple of times this season, and that still remains to be the same thing, doesn't it? You talked about people learning at different rates and taking on information and having a level of understanding. It's still the same in terms of course, it's all relevant, but when you're working with a 9 and 10-year-old or a 14-year-old, as you was the younger age groups, that you get to first team level as well, and professionals still need coaching, they still need encouraging, and then the same principles relate to them as it does with the other 2 groups that you were working, or 3 groups that you've been working with.
Yeah, definitely. I think and then even like the language of it as well. So I remember saying to a first team player not long ago during a phase, it might be you. And I didn't shout it out. I just said to him, it might be you. The player said, yeah, it might be you. And he said, and like the play went, and then he was like, what did you mean? I went, well, the ball's on the other side of the pitch, but what I mean is it might be you who gets it. So how are you going to get it? So he didn't know my language, but if you work with my 18s, they know that's what I mean. So if I say it might be you, it's like, what I mean is, how are we going to get you the ball? Because I can see the picture coming and he's going to receive the ball. So I'm trying to like prompt him and get him ready. Like, it might be you. Because I can see that if we come out, we can make 2 passes, he receives it, and all of a sudden he's attacking. So there's that. And you know, that's good that that player is quite intelligent. So he's not afraid to ask questions because he wants to learn quick. But other people will be like, what's this geez, like, what's he on about?
Yeah.
So so you're always learning about the levels and the age groups, and what everyone still needs help and guidance, especially when it's a new voice.
Yeah. Just before I go on to your session, because you touched upon it, but I think it's a big part of what you were doing, and obviously where you've got to and what you're doing now. But just like everyone to have a bit of an understanding of your commitment to learning, because you mentioned about when you did your level 2 or whatever it was referenced to at the time, UA for B, your A license. But as we all know, your qualifications are vitally important, but doesn't shape you as a coach. It doesn't always create you the opportunities, and it doesn't always round you off. There's a lot more of other experiences that go with it. But I think you probably undersold it a bit, El, when you said about, I went to watch people work, but you got a family, you're doing the 14s, you're doing the 18s, but then you mentioned about your days off and the situations and environments that you put yourself in. I know a lot of it was at West Ham, but it was a big commitment, I know, that went with that. So I think it's important that people get a bit of a feel for how that looked for you.
Yeah, it's basically because I stopped, right? It's I think there's the tendency of play, like you said it before, tendency of players go, oh, I've played, so I'm going to get this job and this is going to be me and all that. So I knew I need to graft to be the best I'm going to. It's the same as trying to be a player. So you have to work. So yeah, I ended up having 2 jobs, but also my days off, I'd go and surround myself with in some good environments because of West Ham and stuff like that, and I go and watch people I wouldn't have days off at times. I've got a young family, so luckily my wife's really understanding. She knew that I was starting again in a way, and I needed to go and do this. But even at times, she'd be like, "Why are you doing it? It's your day off." And I'm like, "Because I need to learn, and why I'm doing it now, it will come good in the future." And luckily, that got recognised by people. They understood that I need to learn. I need to learn because just because I played, it doesn't mean I'm going to be now a top coach. And I want to be the best coach I can be. I want to work with good people. And it's not just going to get given to me. So that's how I think. I think others, they've been fortunate enough to fall into really good jobs. Fair play to them. I want to show that it's not just because of that. I don't. And other coaches that have coached for so long and maybe not played, like they deserve just as much as well. So I wanted it to be quite an even playing field. I know that I'm going to have to graft to get what I want to get to. And luckily, I've had some really good experiences because of it. I think that's definitely contributed to why I'm in this job at the minute, and maybe why I've helped out above. And then I can tell I'm uncomfortable with that bit. I just want to.
Yeah.
I
think that the reference you made about players wanting to get better and the commitment to that, but then at the same time, I think so many people. The question I get asked a lot is, I never get the opportunities, and people stop playing and walk straight into jobs. But I think it's really important because it's not just about you going and learning to try to make sure that you get the opportunity at Colchester, for example. It's with a plan to make yourself better. It's not always about, I'm going to go and watch this coach because he might give me a job, or he's going to, I'm going to particularly work with that age group. There's a bigger picture to it all.
Yeah,
that your plan is to improve.
I think what I didn't say was, and I've spoke to other coaches about this. You hear this a lot in football. If you need anything, let us know. Or I'll come down, come and watch, blah, blah, blah. So I do it. People say it to me. I'm like, all right. And I book a date in, and then I'll go do it. So, and then you get some that go, oh yeah, I can't because of this, blah, blah. But then the ones that do, I'm like, all right, you told me I can come down. So I make sure I book a date in. Yeah. And then spoke to during one of those periods, spoke to Nigel Gibbs about it. And before lockdown, I'd literally had a plan. I was going to Germany, I was going to New York, I was going to Bulgaria and somewhere else, plus all the teams in England. So basically I was going to go and just learn all of this through different people that I knew, and go and experience all the different environments, because they'd all said to me, come and see me. So I was like, all right, no problem. But then lockdown happened. So I ended up not getting some of those opportunities. But over here, I've done it where people say, yeah, come down. Like, yeah, I will. And then I do it. So, and then because I'm then learning in different environments, I'm not just going into one and just thinking that it's this way and it's all that. I want to learn from different people and what it looks like in their world as well. So yeah, basically I just make people accountable for what they're saying to me. And if they change their mind, they change their mind. But yeah, so I try not to say that to people. And if I do say it to someone, that they'll be in. So
yeah, brilliant.
I've just got a question.
Yeah, no, go on. So no, you.
Just going obviously quite far back to the start of the interview, you mentioned about your loan and going out to various or multiple loans. How did that experience shape you as a player, but also how does it shape you in terms of your communication with players, perhaps under 18, maybe a bit higher, that will have that experience? I mean, what did you learn the most from that? Because I'm forever seeing perhaps the impatience of players potentially I want to be first, don't want to go out on loan, I want to be first, I'm going to be first team. But actually that does have that will have a level of experience that comes with it. And I guess what did you learn from most of it? And also what did you learn that helped you with your management or your coaching?
The impatience bit doesn't go. So I was really impatient. So were all players before that and still coming. So even in Colchester, they're impatient. Speak to the 18s, they're like, yeah, I want to be in the first team. Okay. But how are you going to do it? So I was that person, and I expected to be in, and this is the truth, I expected to be in West Ham's first team when I was 17. But the context to that was I was training with them when I was 15. So that's why I was like, no, that should be me. So impatience or expectations, I don't know, or desire, I don't know what it is. Setting goals, I set all sorts of goals, but that's why I expected to be in the first team. Then I nearly had to retire at 18, so I come back from that. Then I had my first loan, which was Peterborough, in pre-season, and it didn't go well. I didn't play a game. I was only sub once, and that was the last game of my loan. And they were like, stay. I was like, no, I'm not just going to stay to train. Went back, I made my debut in the cup for West Ham. So my loan didn't go well. So I learned there. I learned a little bit what people were League 1 or 2, 1 at the time. I learned a little bit about League 1. And then I was sub for West Ham. So I come back, made my debut, sub for a few games. Then I went on loan to Bristol Rovers, December time. I was promised I was going to play. Sub every game. Came on in midfield morning, I'd played centre half. And then I'll tell you what it taught me is that, one, I don't want to be in League 2, and like at that age, and 2, I don't want to be in League 2. Well, League 1 and 2, sorry. So it just gave me the hunger to go back and prove myself even more. And by the way, I was not even 3rd, 4th choice at West Ham, at like 5th choice probably. So they tried to then send me to Torquay on loan. And at this point, Teddy Sheringham was at the club. So I went to go speak to him, and I went like, what do you think? I told him, like, he obviously knew about my other loans. And then he was like, tell him no. I went, well, yeah, that's how I feel about it. I don't want to go. He went, well, tell him no. Tell him that you feel you're getting the team. So I was like, yeah, you're right. So I did. And the manager said, like, well, I don't see you getting in the team in the next month. I'm like, well, I don't want to go. I think I'll get in the team. So then I trained really, really well. And then an injury happens. I came on my actual league debut. I came on up front with Teddy Sheringham, Reading away for the last 10 minutes. But the manager was only prepping me for the game 3 days later. So it was just to get me experience in the Championship. And then I played through at home on the Tuesday night, and then I stayed in the team for the rest of the season. And the rest happened. So I failed twice, really. And my loans were failures. And I ended up having a couple more, which weren't great later on in career. But so what I've taught and tried to help the players at Colchester now is that you don't have to have, like, your loans don't have to be perfect. You have to just take something from them. So if you're not playing, what you're learning. If you're playing, what you're learning. If you're sub and come on, what you're learning. And the biggest thing for a few of them is that you don't want to end up in that environment soon. You might end up in that, hopefully in 10 years' time, whatever it is. But that should give you the motivation to push in our environment, to give everything to become a first team player at Colchester. So I try and link it like that. And also in your career in general, things aren't going to be smooth. So it's always bumpy. To try and try and give advice to the 18s about that, 23s about that, and you're going to have these setbacks in whatever age group it is. I think younger players, we spoke about it before in recruitment stuff, that young players have bumps, and they're the ones that maybe go on and play at a good level or make it into the first team. So everyone has to go through some adversity at some point. So yes, probably that way.
It's a great opportunity to give them that adversity, because most of them, a lot of kids, wouldn't have experienced it in a football terms, would they? By the time they get to your group that you got now, 17, 18, for a lot of them, they've been their own way for a hell of a lot of their careers, if you like, or the time that they've been playing football, because kids that are in youth teams or under 18s have usually been the best player in their team since the age of 7 or 8, which normally means an academy team, but if it's a player that's come out of grassroots late and found himself the opportunity of being in an under 18s at a professional football club, 9 times out of 10 have always been the best player. So then all of a sudden they come into an environment where there are bumps every day, where there are difficulties every day, where being a footballer is more than often than not difficult. So you have to try and create those opportunities for them so that they understand what it's going to be about for hopefully the next 15, 20 years.
Sorry, just on that, gents,
go on.
In the environments that you work in, would you set up someone to fail? And I suppose, but if we know what you've just explained, and we know that resilience is a key thing around attribute for anyone that wants to progress, and they sort of bounce back from failures. And would you ever consider throwing someone out on loan, kind of knowing that this isn't going to work, but we want him to experience that and experience struggles, particularly like, being the best player? Or so I'm thinking about grassroots kids as well who may not have had many challenges throughout their youth career. How do we manufacture, or do you will just accept that it's going to happen to them one day? That's to anyone, really.
No, I think so for instance, send them on loan, there's no guarantee they will play, no matter what the club's going to tell you. So we can have the best intentions of them going on loan. We've been told they're going to play all these minutes. They're going to do this, that, and that for this club that they're at. The reality is that don't happen. Yeah, and especially because they're young. It depends on the situation as well. So, so within that, there might be the case that they are having to find the resilience, find another way, learn it, and that's fine. But that's within it. I don't think we send players out to do that straight away. I think it presents itself, and then you find out a little bit about it. But then what we'll do is we'll talk to the players about what's going on, what are the challenges, why is it different, and stuff like that. But really, it's because we're trying to produce players for Colchester, not for the teams they're at. So they're going to learn all that and hopefully come back better players anyway, whether they've played every minute or they keep coming on sub or whatever. So I think that just happens within their loans. I think it's hard to really recreate it, but it does happen. It does definitely happen, and our players have had that experience this season with that. And then ultimately, if it's not right for them, then we pull them back, and then we have a little bit more of a controlled environment, and then they'll still have challenges with us. So
it's the terms that I think the big thing's the terms of the loan is that they're going to their clubs, and the clubs know that there's not this commitment to them having to play. Because there will be clubs out there that want their boys to go and get men's football, so they do it on the club's terms. But then it doesn't teach the players to get in the team. Doesn't teach them sometimes that you get dropped and you don't get told the reason why you've been dropped. You just got to find a way, as Els referred to, of getting back into the team or or proving yourself to the manager. So I think it's partly that terms of the loan of like, we're not sending this kid out because he's got to play every minute of every game. It's the terms are of the manager picking his team, and he's got to get into that or find a way back into that when it don't go right. And then it's for like from a club's perspective, it's about picking and not understanding the clubs that these lads are going to go to. So it's not pitching it too high or too low. So again, it all becomes on their terms just because of their ability. Actually, the level that they've been pitched at, there's going to be a few little bumps in the road because it's not all going to be plain sailing, or it's not all going to be way above their level. That's why I think through seasons, especially for loaning into non-league, players get pulled back and then sent back out again, higher, lower, sometimes even to the same level. So I think sometimes it's that terms as well of the loan period and the clubs that these lads are going to. James, you mentioned to me earlier about talking to Elliott about that mentoring, because I know it's a big part of what he's, a part of the job that Elliott does as well.
Yeah, it was just obviously throughout the whole interview, it sort of all comes back to building relationships, whether that's with the managers you went out on loan and learnt a lot from, and you've continued those relationships. You've also got your own relationships with your mentors that you ring and get advice from. And you talked about the relationship with your players. It's, I guess, what is the technique that you use for that to build those relationships with your players, and how does that look? And any advice you could give to a coach, really?
Listen, I tell them they have to do it or they go in, if I'm honest. No, I don't really. I just say I'm always honest with them. So since I've been in the building with the boys, like, I will give them the honesty. I'll be like truthful with them, and I'll, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, I think it's important that they know what they're good at, why they're good at it, what they need to improve on, why they need to improve on it. So I will always give them the honesty of, and when they ask me why, I will then tell them and guide them and deliver some information to make them better. So, and I don't know, and I don't always expect them to agree. So I always want the communication lines to be open. So if they don't agree with me, fine, like, tell me why, because then it will make me better to understand what they see on the pitch as well. Which is tough because they're not, although I obviously try and work like this, they don't always give you that. So you have to then ask the right questions and then set it up sometimes so that, I delivered a video today, you end up being the main voice, but you still need to ask the right questions for them to feel like they're comfortable in the environment. So I think I try and just be honest, deliver realistic pictures that they need. And sometimes with some players, just make it as, or strip it back as much as possible, and give them certain tasks within either the session or games. So it's all different with all different players. So I end up having 4 players last week, and 3 of them were striker and 1 was a centre half, plus a goalie. So I end up doing attacking in the final third with front 3 and a centre half, and then a goalie. So I end up working on and knowing what they need. So I know every player's ILP stuff, individual learning plan, or IDP stuff. So I just do it all about that. And sometimes that's the best session, small numbers. So then that within a group, sometimes you know you're hitting them because you design your sessions to be a certain way, but you know that every player is still going to get something from it. When it's a small number, it's intimate, it's all about them, and they get a lot more out of it because the focus is on them. So I try to, when I can, deliver in small numbers so everyone gets that little bit more of me. And it always looks different depending on what day it is, if I'm really honest as well. So, and when you're not in a team, I tell them why. I think it's important that they know I try not to fluff it up with stuff, and it doesn't always go well, but at least they then can't come back and say, well, you weren't honest, or you said this and it didn't happen. And that's not me being like I'm trying to think of a good word to use. Yeah, just to be trying open and honest, really, without being harsh about it. You know, I think it's, yeah, that's how they want. I want them to see me, and try and get the best out of them in that way as well.
And then I can't really not ask you this off the back of a mentoring question, but who's your biggest role model in football, either as a player or has that changed from a player now that you're in a sort of coaching position?
Well, when I was joining West Ham, it was David Beckham, right? And I got pelters for this because he got sent off in the World Cup, and it's like, oh, how can that be your role model and all that? And obviously he didn't do much after that, so I had to change that. But I think that's, listen, I was the youngest of 4 boys. I always looked up to my brothers and what they done, and a lot of my education actually come when I was younger. So as you can imagine, I was carted everywhere watching them train and play. I watched my brothers have some really good managers when I was younger. So I was in dressing rooms listening to team talks. So I always felt that was quite a advantage with all the different managers, coaches that they had. And then I think that was a big part of why I understood football when I was younger. So I think that helped me. I think that still helps me. I think that a lot of different managers gave me lots of different bits to me throughout, good and bad as well. So even West Ham, all those bits I said at the start, it didn't always go well with Pardew before he put me in the team. But then he put me in the team, and then, but some of the stuff he used to coach, I've actually used this season. And that was 19 years ago that he coached certain things. So there's stuff that I've brought with me. There's some good bits like that. I think I've had Sean O'Driscoll, which was been really good for me. Played for him twice, and I think his understanding of football and the detail of what it is, if I'm honest, I think I told him this as well not long ago. I didn't understand some of why he worked the way he worked, but then coming away from him and recognizing how he worked, that I then worked for Eddie Howe, who was just a young version of Sean, in the nicest way. So I think Eddie's one that I've learned loads from in terms of how football is played, making sure training was always different. Training was never the same with him, and I could tell you what a centre half would need to do in a 4-3-3, but I'd also be able to tell you what the winger could do, because he taught you every position. So you would train and learn in what we would think is a normal technical. All of a sudden, I'm rolling inside as a right winger because I know how to make the movement and receive it and play forward. Then I'm a striker. So he would teach you all that your teammate, everything your teammate would need from you as well. So so that was good. I've had some good ones. I've been quite fortunate. I've had Tony Pulis, who plays a total different way to those managers, but he taught me the value of your teamwork, your defending the box as a centre half, how hard work should look as a team and all that stuff. So Tony Mowbray, again, he would pull me in the office to drop me, but I'd be in there for 30-40 minutes talking about football, mainly because he knew that was a way of trying to soften the blow of dropping me. But I end up having really good conversations about football. And yeah, I've been fortunate to cross paths with a lot of people that know the game well. And then there's quite a lot. I've said it before, I had a lot of clubs, so I ended up speaking to a lot of people. I ended up having a lot of coaches or managers. I have lots of conversation with Ross now about certain things. So again, we talk about football. I think we look at football the same way as well. So we end up talking about what we like and how I can, obviously Ross helps me with how I can implement stuff within the 18s as well. So no, I still try and pick the ear of these people. Even a different one, which is not a coach, I speak to Tony Struddert quite a lot. I think he's some guy that helped me with my values at West Ham as a kid, always helped on and off the pitch, went above and beyond. So going back to like maybe what Ross was saying about how you work and how you want people to see you. So I always remember that about him. And, you know, he's nearly 50. So, and he's still the same way. He's at West Brom now. He was one when he was at Arsenal last year, carrying the water bottles. He's won the Champions League with Man United. While all the other 18s are walking in, he's still got the same standards. So, yeah, I take lots of little bits from other people, but also just try and be myself. I don't try, I'm not trying to be anyone else. Yeah.
Unbelievable names there, by the way. Brilliant names, which is great because
feeling now though, didn't you? As I
say
say
it again.
You'll know quite well how I'm feeling right now when I
No, I know,
comes out.
know, but I think ultimately, like when these conversations come up, people need to get a feel from people that have impacted you. And one of the things I think is really important is that everyone says, "Oh, you've got to be the same. You've got to be you. You've got to find your own way." But someone shapes it. Like no one. I don't think I've ever met a coach, and I don't think I ever will. And if we're continuously learning and trying to develop and progress, then we're always taking and we're always evolving. So someone's got to be responsible for your opportunities and the learning that you've had, and to be able to call on a number of them people that you've mentioned there, it's fantastic. And that, you know, that's going to stand you in unbelievably good stead in terms of where you want to try to get to. James, do you want to go on to some of the questions we've had in some consciousness?
Yeah, no, I agree. So I guess we've covered some of these, but Jack asked, what advice would you give to young coaches? And I guess probably go with the top one advice, given the time.
I just think with young coaches, I think it's about being on the grass as much as you can. So, and just understand that it won't always be perfect. So even when it doesn't go well, and depending on what age group you do, and this is the honesty of it, sometimes the players won't know if it's gone well or not. So you'll be able to get away with a few bits where you think, oh no, that didn't actually work. But it's just being able to adapt. That's the biggest thing. That's sometimes you'll see it. Sometimes you need someone else to tell you, well, what about this and that? And then if you have the right people around you to maybe focus on certain little bits that you might have missed, or get someone to feedback your session. So I think I can give you one, but it kind of rolls into one. So
yeah, that's fine. He also had another part, and I think I wouldn't normally do two questions from one, but it's quite relevant to what you said about observation. How can I improve my observation skills when I'm coaching, either in a session or a match? I know you went to watch a lot of training sessions, so it's kind of, what did that look like for you, and is there any tips you can give him?
Well, when I'm observing, you're looking at how coaches talk to players, how they engage. So all the little tactics and like little bits of detail to then take into your own environment. So how they deliver messages, how they stop the sessions. So I think it's quite easy to then put a session on and something doesn't go right and you're like, I've got to tell them. Well, actually, if you do that, you don't give them enough time to work out their own problems. So they need to be able to problem solve as well, as much as you trying to help and guide them. And then if you're going after a certain outcome in your session and it doesn't come out, then create it in some way.
One of the things I think is really important as well, just to answer that as well, because it's massive, is that if there's a player or a theme or a thing that's been worked on, sometimes try and look for that rather than watching the game all the time or the session. So we have a tendency, normal, to watch the ball or watch what's going on the ball, but sometimes it's really important to be able to look away from it. And El's been working or talking on his unit of working with the back four. It'd be really foolish of him now to spend the rest of the week watching the ball and looking away from the back four. So I might be talking out of turn when I say this, El, but from a coach's perspective, being able to look at that group of players, or, you know, talked about the 10-yard pass. Can we look at the consistency of people's 10-yard passing, because we've stuck to a particular theme. So just from that coach's point of view as well, of helping him with his awareness, don't always watch what's happening in the action. Look out or look for the particular things that you've been working on. Sorry.
Cool. No, that's exactly it. They always tell you to look away from the ball. That's where you learn the most, right? And even when I did in that session, I remember the ball was out wide. I just looked at the 6-yard box and I kind of knew what was going on here, but I'm just looking at the body shape and the organization, the talking. So the stuff that I then was doing in the unit work, once it's in the phase, you want it to come out. And if it doesn't, you have to then coach it or stop it. And yeah.
We had from Michael, I guess this is the best coaching drill. Or what's your favourite coaching drill for defending?
I think it's something like where I would get them in their position. So I think we've done this one a few months back, but I would get the two centre halves together, working on their foot patterns outside the box, so different techniques. But then what they would do is they'd have to be in sync. So one of them will have to lead it, or I'll give them a task and say like right, left, up, all that stuff, and they'd have to lead that. And when they're doing this, say 25 yards from the goal, they're working on their foot patterns. I'll have the fullbacks doing something else, but ready to cross the ball. Basically, they have to, once the whistle blows, two centre halves will have to sprint back to their goal. That's when the body shape side of it comes into it, positioning, types of crosses, defend the cross, squeeze up. So it's just, I'd done that as a player 19 years ago. Like I said it probably 10 minutes more. And again, using the different references with the cones and the colours. So it just promotes, you're still doing technical stuff with the ball, but then it promotes all the others. So your mentality to defend the box. And then I'll give them a little bit of a carrot, like I said before. Once that happens, they either squeeze up and drop out and play again. So then I'll give them another ball to then build up and play out, and then pass into, again, a mini goal if it's like the unit stuff. So that it's realistic passes that they'll make into the midfielders and beyond. So I like to do that because a lot of time you do it, they don't sprint. So actually it's just getting their habits of sprinting back to goal and then the body shape. So they want to run backwards the whole way, and you think you can run quicker by going forwards and then getting your foot patterns right. So it's just teaching them that bit. So I liked that, and it's something I've coached. I've done it with so I've done it with all the age groups now. So I've done 14s, Chelmsford 18s, my 18s, and I've done it with the first team at Colchester. And then how it looks might just be different with the environment, or different things you can add in. So you can always add stuff in, and you can still do that with 2 players. You don't need a back 4. Then you can layer it and put in a midfielder, and then they've got more live passes. And you can layer that up into 11. I think we end up doing that with Ross. So we linked them all together, and then there's a big old phase. So yeah.
Brilliant. I think that'll do, because I think obviously it's getting on. Did you want to do the quick fire round, Ross?
Yeah, go on, mate. Yeah.
Goddard, did you have any questions, or you?
No, good. Just enjoyed listening.
So we do a little quick fire round. So it's almost like as quickly as you can answer. Some random stuff, but mainly still focused on the football side of it. So the first one is, what is your favourite book?
The Gruffalo.
It's very popular in this house.
No, I've got I said this to Ross earlier, Living on a Volcano, I think it's called, the coach's one. Something like that. Yeah, it's a coach's one about all the coaches' environment. So actually that'd be one for coaches to look at. I think it's got all the different levels of coaches and their environments and what experiences they've had. So I think that was quite a good one for me. I want that quick with it.
Not as good as a Gruffalo, though.
Gruffalo's good, and then you've got the Gruffalo's child, and then you've got
Favourite podcast?
I think there's one that's Coffee Club or something like that.
I've heard it's
It's
good.
one out there, mate. Not consistent enough.
We sort of touched on it, but I guess your favourite coach. I think we talked about role models, but I guess who do you enjoy watching if you turn on the TV, or not so much on the TV?
All round, I think Eddie Howe, and it wasn't even like I didn't have him for 10 years. I had him for 2, something like that. So yeah, I think that one for the biggest learning. But I've been, like I said, I've been quite lucky with who I've had. I messed up Paul Lambert as well. I've had, so I end up different reasons, different people. But I think Eddie overall, with just the way he is. So yeah.
Greatest learning experience?
Oh. I think failing at the start, I think was the biggest one. I think so. Because even before it started, it didn't start. I nearly retired. So I think learning from that, and then the failures of the loans was just, I don't know. I think that's probably it, failure. Because then I had to prove people wrong a lot. So.
And then finally, if you had to invite 3 people around for dinner, either you're cooking or someone else is cooking, depending on your skills. But who would you invite 3 people around?
Anyone.
Anyone. Any walk of life.
Be careful with this one. I would go. This ain't that quick, is it? I would go Tom Hanks. I don't know why I said that. Tom Hanks. Why Tom Hanks? Don't know.
Awesome.
Don't know. Tom Hanks. Why? I think Beckham, because it's just he could tell me a lot about football, and probably need a bit of live. Ed Sheeran, just so it's a bit lively. I think between the 3 of us, we could have a bit of a giggle. I think. Tom Hanks, I don't know why, but
No, I'm still struggling.
I don't know that one. I don't know why I said that. Yeah, it's because my wife would probably say, yeah, Bet you'd have to be Woody from Toy Story.
Fair enough. That is it for the quick fire round.
That was weird, isn't it? I don't know if I should apologise for that bit. I'm not. I'm
That's
back.
good.
Quick, yeah.
No, look, mate. Brilliant. Like, loads of information. Lots of real variations for people to think about, but also to be able to, I think, relate to in a lot of ways, which is one of the reasons when I mentioned about first getting you on, was that there's so many different coaches at different levels doing different things, that be able to relate to some of the experiences you've been through, albeit it's all still fairly fresh in terms of the amount of time that you've been coaching. So thanks for everything you've given us, and thanks most importantly for coming on. It's been a good period of time, so hopefully everybody's enjoyed it. And just on behalf of everyone at the Coffee Club, thanks very much.
Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it.